Hello there and welcome to another interesting episode of the interview. Today, I'm so delighted to have, I don't know whether there is anything called my former boss. Once a boss is always a boss. I'm so delighted to have the Reverend Zachariah Chinne. We'll be having a very wonderful and fascinating and interesting conversation today. If you know who Reverend Zachariah Chinne is, you know that there is never a dull moment with him. And not just that, I mean, he's someone that is so passionate about, national issues, especially issues that affect Africa and also issues that affect our dearly beloved country, Nigeria. And he has done some work on this. He has written. He has a couple of videos on YouTube, on his YouTube channel. You may want to check those. And he does a lot of things. Reverend Zachariah Chinne is, of course, a native of Nigeria, and he is a minister of the gospel with the Evangelical Church Winning All. So I'm just so delighted to have you join me today for this wonderful and interesting conversation, sir.
Thank you. It's a great honor. I think it's been like a year since we did something like this. Mm-hmm. So it's a great privilege to be here, where so many people have been, so many great minds have interacted here, and I'm looking forward to some interesting conversations.
So do I. I know this is going to be very wonderful, a very wonderful conversation. So I want us to start by talking about our country. Of course, most of our discussion will be centered on the issues that are happening in Nigeria. What is your general? Let me start with from an emotional perspective, so to speak. What is your general feeling about our country, Nigeria?
Well, without sounding overly pessimistic, I will say that there's just one word that describes how I feel about happenings in Nigeria. It is simply the word depressing. There is hardly any minute, any day, any week, any month that you flip through the pages of papers or go online and you don't find things that break your heart. Especially, again, considering that Nigeria is a country that I grew up in, many of us grew up in. It's a country that gave us a lot of what we are today and what we have become today. But to just witness gradually the collapse in almost every aspect of our national life, it is just simply depressing. So that's just my feeling about the happenings right now.
Yeah, and I think I suppose that also describes the feelings of many Nigerians. One thing with Nigerians is that Nigerians love Nigeria. Wherever they are, whatever they do, Nigerians love Nigeria. And unfortunately, things do not always turn out to be the way they are. But just meet a Nigerian. Nigerians are passionate about Nigeria. Nigerians are passionate about this country. Just as you said, it is the country that gave us everything. That's the country we know. And whether you are in the US or in Europe or wherever you are, there is always that connection back home. So the problems of Nigeria are multifaceted, right? But if we are to pin that down to one specific issue, what will you say is our foundational problem?
I think that our problems began even before our independence. Foundationally, there is a problem of the crisis of citizenship. The whole concept and idea of citizenship never seemed to have been ingrained in the minds of Nigerians. So we think more in terms of our tribal groups, our ethnicity. We think more in terms of our regions. We think more in terms of our political affiliations, and we think more in terms of our religion. Now, as important as all of these factors that I have mentioned are, when they are the very factors that define what it means to be a Nigerian, then we have a problem. Now, these foundational problems of the crisis of citizenship translates into the crisis of governance in Nigeria, that the governance structure seems to favor all of these things that I have enumerated and many more. So when people get elected, they see themselves, one, as the tribal champion, or the champion of their ethnic group, or the champion of their local government, or their state, or their religion, or their political party. Now, it's sad that, like, the present administration we have in Nigeria is an administration that, even in governance, still behaves as though she is the opposition. And this many years down the road, after coming back into power, you have the same government still blaming the predecessors. At what point, at what stage in the governance of our nation will the present regime say, yes, we've gotten this wrong? Why must it always be someone else's problem? Why must it always be the problems of previous administrations? The reason the previous administrations was voted out was because the present people promised us heaven and earth. And recently I hear they're saying, let's be fair to them. And I don't know if this present administration even understands the meaning of the word fairness. Because this is the administration that hasn't been fair to Nigerians. So when you ask for fairness, some of us wonder, what exactly are you asking for? Or what exactly are you talking about? So we must go back, I think, to addressing first and foremost those foundational issues of the crisis of citizenship. Who indeed is a Nigerian?
That's a very serious question. Peripherally, people may think, that question does not need definition or some kind of redefinition. But I think I quite agree with you that we need to really define who is a Nigerian. Who is a Nigerian? At what point do you think we missed that? Has it always been like that, or we missed that at some point?
I mean, we celebrate those people we call the founding fathers of Nigeria, whether it's Azikiwe, Awolowo, or the late Sardona. But these were regional leaders. We often forget that they were regional leaders. Yes, they may have fought for the independence of Nigeria, but this thinking of regionalism is something that we need to deal with right at when we do education, right from our nursery, primary, and secondary schools. This is where to ingrain this value of what it means to be a Nigerian. This is where it starts. That is the recruiting base for those people who will eventually emerge as leaders of our nation. But when that isn't done, and these people keep thinking in terms of those categories that I have outlined, and they find themselves in leadership, they are going to perpetuate what has always been the practice. Now, one thing I have seen is somebody gets elected as a governor, and his tribal group, I mean, the association of the tribal group goes to him on, what is it called? Something visit, a congratulatory visit to celebrate their own.
They call it courtesy visit.
Okay, courtesy visit to celebrate their own, their son and daughter. Now, in this visit, there are expectations, there are demands that they place upon him as a representative of that tribal group. So all through his years, he spent in that office trying to appease his base And his base is primarily the people from his tribal and ethnic group. And so I have seen successive administrations in Nigeria, right from the previous to the present. I have seen this practice again and again. Now, when do we have a leader who thinks more in terms of the country as a whole? Now, President Buhari just had this glowing statement when he came the first time. I belong to nobody. I belong to everybody. But throughout the years up to this present, I see what he said and I see what he is doing. And this is the greatest lies Nigerians have ever been told by any president. The man says he belongs to nobody. No, the practice we see on ground shows that he belongs to somebody. The man says he belongs to everybody. His everybody is defined by the somebody he belongs to. At least by practice, we see it in his appointments. We see it in government policies. We see it in practice. We see it in almost every aspect of governance in the present administration.
So that's I wish President Buhari was listening to this to respond to that.
No, he will ban it. They ban every view. They ban every view that is contrary to what they hold on to. I mean, you can't be objective with this government. They come after you. It is sad. Nigerians lament the previous administration of Goodluck Jonathan. But people could say anything about the regime of Jonathan and go to bed and sleep.
That's true.
People said things that were untrue about that administration. They didn't have to respond to everything. Now, for everything anybody says, they come after you. Whether you are Dr. Melafia, except if you are like the Gumis, you can say anything and nobody will come after you. But it's sad.
It is really sad. I want us to talk a little bit more on about this issue of tribalism or nepotism. That kind of it's a cancer, right? Or all over Nigeria, among our politicians. You kind of spoke about it briefly. I want us to explore that more. This issue of nepotism and tribalism. When people are campaigning, right? Of course, these diversities that we have, they are not necessarily negative. They are supposed to be utilized for the development of the country. When people are campaigning for any political post or position, they usually campaign on an umbrella, or they usually tell us that they want to serve the country or serve the state and what have you. But shortly after that, even some of them that prove to be credible to some extent by our human judgments, when they get elected into such offices, all of a sudden something happens. And you mentioned, you painted the scenario of people paying them these courtesy visits and what have you from their tribe. Is that the only thing? Is that the only thing that causes this tribalism and nepotism that we see among our politicians?
I think that it's a combination of so many factors. That there's a place of shame and the shaming of elected public officers, appointed, or whatever positions people have. The base, which I will still insist to be those tribal groups that people come from, have these expectations. And if you don't meet up those expectations, you are going to be shamed. And they do it in so many ways. And so people who are in governance feel pressured to want to appease that base, even if that base is just 1/1,000 of the population. Now, I would think that, like I had already said, we need to go back to the drawing board. And the drawing board is not what I hear politicians say all of the time. No, we need to go back to the base. And our base will not be those tribal groups and all of the sentiments attached to belonging to a tribe. Now, I'm not downplaying the significance of our ethnic groups, our tribal groups, and so on and so forth. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm simply saying that when it comes to the larger picture of what it means to be citizens of a country, we must be willing to bring our tribal and ethnic sentiments under, not above. We must be able to let them be servants of the larger national project. Now, that takes me to another thing. I don't even think that there is anything you can call a Nigerian project, because nobody has ever articulated that we have any project. People in America talk about the American dream. Is there anything like a Nigerian dream?
I don't know.
Apart from the nightmares.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about, I know you just mentioned that in person. I want us to talk a little bit about President Muhammadu Buhari. And it's so glaring that his appointments since he assumed office for these past 5 or 6 years have been lopsided, and they seem to favor his own people. And sometimes when he is confronted, or when the administration is confronted with this fact, they tend to either deny it or just wish it away, or whatever. Talk to me a little bit about this issue of nepotism and tribalism that you see in the appointments of this present administration. And I want you to also connect that with the issue of the Fulani herdsmen, or whatever they are called, Fulani terrorists, or whatever they are called, that for the past couple of years have been terrorizing everyone, killing a lot of people. And people sometimes try to connect that with the fact that we have a sitting president that is Fulani. That is why they are having a field day.
When it comes to appointing people into positions, my position has always been that we emphasize competency over constituency. In which case, it doesn't matter where the people come from, so long as they are the best that Nigeria can offer at a given period. But you can't tell me that the appointments that we have seen, whether it is the service chiefs or even ministerial appointments, well, for ministerial appointments, you get to have people, every state gets to present someone at least. But the other government outfits that we have, the appointments have not been on the basis of competency. It is more on the basis of constituency, where they are coming from. Now, I was looking at cutoff marks for, I'm trying to remember what it is, from the federal schools. And I see that the eastern states have there is a higher expectation in terms of the cutoff points. I see that the southern states have higher than the northern states. The north has the least. And yet, the north with the least expectations in terms of their performance are the ones who are ruling, those that we expect so much from. And that, to me, is an indication that our country is not run on the basis of competency. And unless we get back to competency and pick the best people this country has for the roles that we expect them to play, unless we go back to that, I don't know that we've ever done that, but unless we tread this route of just looking for the best. Now, the best will mean that I don't care what religion it comes from, because politicians have exploited religion for far too long to advance their cause. But if this is the best that Nigeria can get at this given point, then I, as a pastor, I don't care if he's a Muslim, I don't care if he's a traditional religionist, but if he is the best to deliver on the good of our nation, fine and good. Now, Sheikh Dr. Gumi, for instance, I mean, I saw yesterday that he said the kidnappers, those bandits, the Fulani herdsmen, who are kidnapping scores of Nigerians from schools and so many places. I hear that the Sheikh said that they are not as bad as iPod. And I am wondering, you mean iPod is not as, I mean, is more terrible than the Fulani herdsmen? I think that is the I mean, I don't want to call him names on this platform or anywhere else. I want to give him the respect that is due him. But on this one, he lied. There is no how you can make justification for the atrocities of the Fulani herdsmen. Now, the federal government, I mean, comes very hard each time people from Eastern Nigeria make their agitations because their voices have never been heard.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 R's of post-independent Nigeria have not been realized. Where is the reconciliation? Where is the rehabilitation? Where is the reconstruction that was promised after the Civil War? Those promises have not been delivered to Eastern Nigeria. And if you want Eastern Nigeria to remain a part of Nigeria, then they must get an they must have equal access to whatever this country offers. But you see that there is being a privileging of the House of Fulani. There's been a privileging of Muslims in Nigeria over other people, and it's not right. Now, I do not advocate for always having a Christian president. That is not right. That is not fair. I do not advocate for always having Christians in leadership in Nigeria. No, I am simply saying let everybody get what is due him. This country, if it truly belongs to all of us, and if, as President Buhari said when he was military head of state, that we have no other country but Nigeria, and we will stay here and salvage it together, we can't do it under this playing ground that is not level. We can't do it when the atmosphere privileges one group over another. We can't do it when you can't proscribe the Fulani herdsmen as a terrorist group, even though they've been termed by international terrorist organizations as the 6th deadliest terrorist group in the world. And yet you can't do that. But you clamp down hard on IPOB. You call them terrorists, even though what they were asking for, what they've been asking for is this country called Nigeria. If it must belong to all of us, then let it belong to all of us. If not, we reactivate the agitations that led to the Civil War. Now, having said this, I do not condone the recent events in Eastern Nigeria. No, this is not the way to go about it. I mean, I don't want always using the word the expression I understand. But again, I understand when your voices are not heard, you look for ways to make yourself heard. But killing innocent people necessarily doesn't get your voice heard. Mm-hmm. It gets your voices corrupted.
And you mentioned the issue of religion, which has been inextricably, linked to politics in Nigeria that it's some scholars have said it's just almost difficult to separate, given the religious atmosphere of Nigeria, that you always see this, and of course the politicians know this and they exploit it, especially during campaigns and what have you, for their own selfish gains. What do you think is the solution, this interrelationship between religion and politics in Nigeria? Is it really possible to try to separate that, given the social religious atmosphere of Nigeria?
I would say no.
So,
Uh,
so how do we go about this? Anytime we are talking about politics, some people know, for instance, if you have a Muslim president, as we currently have, some people know that some of the things that the country is just going down, is just almost at the verge of collapsing. But because of that religious sentiment, people will rather say, well, because he's a Muslim, I would rather have a Muslim as a president than have anyone. Or it can even be the Christians that will say, well, I would rather have a Christian president, no matter how useless he seems to be, but just have a Christian president than to have a Muslim president, and vice versa. Of course, nobody usually talks about the traditionalists, because these two religions came and kind of made that silent.
um, Now, I said that it's not possible to to separate politics from, I mean, religion from Nigerian politics, because culturally, our worldview is such that integrates the the secular and the sacred. We don't have this separation, this bifurcation of the religious and the secular. They are all seen as a way of life. You know that even farming activity, which we will term secular today, is both secular and a religious activity. That's why even in traditional societies, the people will offer their gifts and sacrifices to their gods in anticipation of a bounty harvest. Hunting was also a religious activity. That's why people sought the favors of the gods before they went out. Every aspect of our life was religiously defined. And so when we became Christians and embraced initially a biblical worldview that doesn't separate the secular from the spiritual, that was the attitude we also carried. And Islam is also, I mean, Islam doesn't make that separation. Now, the separation or the attempt to separate the secular from the spiritual is actually a Christian embrace of a Western mindset. And it isn't working because this is not who we are. We've always thought holistically. Now, when it comes to politics, I have had people say, Christian people say, a bad Christian in governance is better than the best Muslim. I felt that that is a disservice to the faith that I profess faith in. I feel that that is an insult on the Christ that I follow and the Christianity that I know are biblically defined. I also feel like it is a total insult to the religion of Islam. Having said this, let me say that I am not particular, and this may sound strange. I am not particular about a Christian being this or a Christian being that. I am particular about when it comes to issues of national interest. I am particular about how do we get the best, the best who thinks more in terms of everybody in the country than he does about his religious constituency, his ethnic constituency, or even his political constituency. The best in terms of having the heart of Nigeria, the interest of Nigeria at heart. That for me is where the recruitment needs to start. Who is the best? Now, people knew that I didn't support the emergence of President Buhari. Right from the day they said the opposition party picked him, I asked the question, why have they picked him? People know that I wasn't also a fan of Atiku emerging as the candidate of the PDP. So whether PDP or APC, I was not for any one of them because I kept asking, are these the best Nigeria could offer us? Are these the best that the political parties could offer Nigeria? And going by their antecedents, these people weren't the best. So why did we insist on these people? You have Atiku with all the issues of corruption against him. You have Buhari with his own form of corruption, not being able to produce even the minimum requirement, which is the O level. And to this very point, I don't know if somebody has found it. But the North insisted, and I said that the North did Nigerians a disservice by fielding Buhari and Atiku, because there were other credible candidates in those parties that the parties never allowed to emerge. So it's I don't know. Politics is so complex that the decision of who emerges is not within the corridors of the ordinary man. It is always the decisions of the big bags in the political parties. And so when the people emerge, they emerge to fill an agenda that was marked out for them by the people who sponsored them or by the people who endorsed them. And these are the things we see. So as we go back to the issue of what do we do with religion in politics? Constitutionally, Nigeria is defined as a secular state.
Mm-hmm.
If Nigeria is a secular state, let's stop sponsoring the Hajj. Let us stop sponsoring Christian pilgrimage, because Christian pilgrimage was a reaction to government spending monies on Muslims to go on Hajj. Let us stop it. Now, it will intrigue you to know that when it comes to Hajj, the government slices the exchange rate. But when you and I are coming to school, we don't get those favors. So that when you and I exchange the naira to the dollar, our naira becomes laughable. And the money you and I thought we had becomes rubbish. And yet, a secular state prefers to sponsor religion and to cut down the exchange rate for religion, whose positive effect, we're not really seeing, than to make that kind of provision available for you and I.
This is my first time of hearing that, and that is quite mind-boggling. And still talking about the issue of Nigerian politics, and especially given the insecurity challenges in the country. You and I are not currently living in Nigeria. Our hearts are in Nigeria, without doubt. But we are getting to a point. The other day, I interviewed Professor Jacob Olupona, who was supposed to be given an honorary doctorate in his alma mater, the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, and he was cautioned by Harvard not to travel. And he lamented, he said, we are getting to a point that you are a Nigerian, you want to go home, right? And someone is telling you not to go to your home. And that is quite threatening given the security challenges. And some of us, that is how we feel. There is just our hearts are really at home. But when you think about just traveling to Nigeria, all kinds of permutations and all kinds of things come to mind. Even if you want to go, you may prefer to go Nicodemously than to even announce that, which is frightening. It's petrifying. And talking about the issue of insecurity, you see what has been happening in the North for the past several years. And now there are reactions in the Southeast and also Southwest. And some people are already sounding the alarm or blowing the trumpet of disintegration of the country. What's your take on that?
First, let me go to the issue of the insecurity. The last time I was in Nigeria was 3 years ago. I have longed to go to Nigeria. The issue is not the ticket to go to Nigeria.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How much is it? That is not the issue. You and I who study overseas get mistaken for people who are making it in America. And so you go and somebody kidnaps you. And then you're just not sure how much you'll be asked to pay. That will be money you and I do not have. That will be money you and I, in many years to come, may never have. And the other thing is, you're not even sure that if the money gets paid, your life will be spared. We know of people who, after the kidnappers collected the ransom, the people were killed. Now, the last time I was in Nigeria, it was sad that I couldn't even tell people very close to me I was coming home. And that was 3 years ago. I spoke with people like today, and I was leaving for Nigeria the following day and arriving the day after, and never told them I was coming. On the eve of my return, over 200 people were killed in villages, in Biram villages in Barkin Ladi. And so today, I want to go to Nigeria. I want to go to internally displaced people's camps and do my research. I can't. I can't take the risk of going. People tell me that if I come to Nigeria, if I come to Jos, I'm going to need more than one car so that people don't know what car I'm using. They tell me that I'm going to need to be sleeping in more than one place so that people don't know where I'm sleeping. And it breaks my heart. It truly, truly breaks my heart. Because this is the country I would love to go to. The last times that I was home, I mean, each time I'm about returning, I feel like I should add one more week. But today, the desire to go gets robbed because people who are in governance, who have promised security for Nigerians, cannot guarantee security for Nigerians. It is so heartbreaking that you can't go home. I have people that I would love to take home to go and see the country that I grew up in, the country that I love. I have people that will want to go and do things in Nigeria, but honestly, I can't take the risk of taking people there now. What is the solution? Disintegration doesn't serve anybody well. Maybe it will serve the so-called, and I'll use the term so-called unapologetically, the so-called three major languages who have paraded themselves as the owners of Nigeria and the rest of us as tenants in Nigeria. The disintegration may serve their purposes. They will be the ones to benefit. But you tell me in which of the communities all across Nigeria the so-called three major languages are not there. You tell me what is going to happen to, for instance, the tribal groups within the Middle Belt, where all of these groups or the major languages are found. You tell me who it is going to benefit. So I see it again as a perpetuation of this regional kind of thing by the East, the South, the Southwest, and also the North. to want to continue holding on to power in the various regions, that is, if a break is possible. But I have also said, people without the history of war don't know that war consumes even those who never prayed for it. People without the history of war don't know the cost of war. There's no disintegration that I have seen in recent history that hasn't been violent. So if we think that the East will just, Nigeria will just say to the East, okay, you want to go, okay, bye-bye, go and have Biafra state. It doesn't happen that way. If we think that the remaining Nigeria will just tell the Southwest, okay, oh, you want Oduduwa state, okay, go in peace. If we think the other Nigeria will just say to the North, what is the North claiming they want to be? It's the North who doesn't want to go anywhere. Because maybe the North has been the one benefiting. But it's going to come at a cost. And I have insisted, no matter how expensive it is to be at peace, it is still cheaper than war.
It's true. And talking about war, you will suppose that even if people are sounding the alarm of war, people in power, our political leaders, shouldn't be the ones saying that. And that takes me to the tweet by President Buhari on June 1st. And this is the tweet he tweeted, or whoever tweeted for him is his account, so we know he's the one. Many of those misbehaving today are too young to be aware of the destruction and loss of lives that occurred during the Nigerian Civil War. Those of us in the fields for 30 months who went through the war will treat them in the language they understand. And of course, this was what led Twitter to, remove, not to even ban him, to just remove or delete his tweet. And it went to this whole saga of Nigeria banning Twitter. I want you I want to hear your take about the tweet itself, because this is like sounding an alarm of war by the president, the sitting president of the country. And also comment, if you can, on this whole issue of Twitter ban. And also connected, a few days ago, I saw the federal government threatening to take down, Facebook and all other social media. And for me, it looks like I'm dreaming. It doesn't look real to me. What's going on?
It's the attitude of the federal government is the attitude of a child biting the hand that feeds him. The present administration came into power through the use of social media. Young people who are internet savvy use their skills to market the present administration on social media platforms. But again, I have said that this government is intolerant to criticism. That this and an unserious government by how she reacts to criticism. Now, over the years when I was much younger, I took criticism personal. I took them to mean these people don't like me. But the older I grew, I'm growing with whatever, the more I'm realizing that criticism, even the ones that we call destructive, if I have a way of just listening to them, I can find something constructive in them.
That's true.
But our government operates by sycophancy. You have people around government who are telling government this is the best government we've ever had. It's a lie. You tell me at what point in the history of our nation did we have to exchange the naira to the dollar? 500 naira to the dollar. At what point? And they're going to say, well, it was because of the misadministration of the previous administration. Come on. When insecurity is leading to capital flight out of Nigeria, when insecurity is leading to flight in terms of our technocrats, in terms of our educated people are just finding ways out of Nigeria. In fact, people are preferring to go to Benin or Togo than stay in Nigeria because of the insecurity. I didn't mention Ghana because that will be too hard for many Nigerians to get to these days. Because Ghana did the hard work and is still doing the hard work. No matter what Ghanaians think about the present administration in their country, let them have a taste of what we have in Nigeria. So it's things like this, and that pains me and continue to make me wonder, when I go back home, will I be returning to the same Nigeria? Will there be a Nigeria for me to return to? And for the president to make that kind of statement he did, without mincing word, that was irresponsible. How I wish that he can make that kind of statement about the Fulani herdsmen who have terrorized and are terrorizing and are killing Nigerians. I was reading this morning about a Catholic university in Nigeria that decides that they're going online completely because of the insecurity. So, I mean, people in government should be the people who bring the voice of reason to bear upon our national life. They should be the one articulating to Nigerians why war is not an option. They should be the one pacifying Nigerians from everywhere and saying, yes, we acknowledge, we admit that things are horrible, things are bad, but we will do everything together to get this country going. But that's not what we see. Now, let me say this. I know that Easterners have their own problems which Eastern Nigerians need to resolve. But since the Civil War, the political parties keep talking about rotational presidency. But the rotation is only between the South and the North. What is happening to our Igbo brothers? What is happening to the Eastern people? Can't they be presidents of Nigeria? If they cannot be, are their agitations right? Are they legitimate agitations? If they are, why haven't we called the leaders to sit down and proffer a solution? Why will the president go to Twitter and make this kind of irresponsible threat? The president cannot lead like this. But I understand that he's a military man. He hasn't retired from the days of war against indiscipline, which is sad.
I wanted to talk a little bit. You and I are from that region in Nigeria that is called, referred to as the Middle Belt, which, has always been neglected when people are talking about, the question of Nigeria, right? And when people are talking about regions, to some extent, people tend to ignore the Middle Belt, which is which is what some people have described as what is actually holding the country together. And I wanted to talk because we are always referred to as the North, the Middle Belt. When people talk about the North, and they just, well, we are all Hausa and what have you. You mentioned the issue of tribes here. There are so many in the so-called North. There are so many tribes. People like our own tribes. I don't know whether tribe is the right word to use. I know that in sociological, studies, people are saying that is a bad word. Languages, so to speak,
Yeah.
or ethnic groups, and but we are, on the most part, ignored, and most of this is found in the Middle Belt. Middle Belt. talk to me a little bit about the question of the middle belt, because people think, or people hypothesize, that if Nigeria is going to break, it's going to be three. But I think it's nobody's praying. We are not advocating that, of course. But just using that hypothesis, uh, the middle belt, will the middle belt be with the North, given that kind of scenario?
The middle belt is a complex. Has a complex identity. At its inception, it was a reactionary identity based on perceived and real marginalization at the center. Now, the middle belt came up as fears for what is going to happen to minority people after independence. Will this marginalization continue? What will be the place of people from these regions who are, one, not Hausa Fulani, two, not Muslim? What is going to be their stake as far as Nigeria is concerned? Now, right from the leadership of the Middle Belt, the Middle Belt had so many names before it eventually became the Middle Belt Movement, whether it's Middle Belt Forum, Middle Belt League, and so on and so forth. The whole thing was to provide a Christian identity for the region, that the region needed to be identified as a Christian region. And that identity is a problematic, like for today. The present day Middle Belt has like 30% Muslim. Now, the Muslims will be people who are from the ethnic groups who have converted to Islam. There will be people from the House of Fulani, Muslim North, who have lived in the Middle Belt for ages. To insist on having an exclusive Christian identity is a problem today. And I hate to say that the Middle Belt, as an exclusive Christian region with an exclusive Christian identity, cannot be realized. The Middle Belt then must form, I see the alliance between the Middle Belt and the Southwest is an old alliance that you found during the days of the Middle Belt, and also the Awolowo group in those political dispensations. So there is the reactivation of those old alliances. But if the alliances are going to be exclusively religious, we won't succeed. So a Middle Belt identity in the modern Nigerian era of today must embrace the Muslims and the House of Fulani people who have lived in those areas for ages. Now, I think this is going to be controversial because some people are going to argue with me that, other ethnic groups who have lived in the Muslim North are not treated that way. But we are dealing with so many factors. The machinery of governance and power have always resided with the House of Fulani Muslim North. And they will do everything like the colonial masters did to crush the agitations of the Middle Belt. Even when they discovered that, yes, the fears of the Middle Belt were legitimate fears, that there was substance to the fears, that they will continue to be marginalized in post-colonial Nigeria, the colonial masters didn't grant the Middle Belt a region. Part of the pressure came from, of course, the Muslim North. And that pressure is going to persist. So to have an exclusive identity as a Middle Belt, I will leave it within the realm of dreams that may not be realized. Oh, it's I don't see how it's going to be realized. So I insist that the people who are going to feel the brunt of a disintegrated Nigeria will be people, minority peoples from the Middle Belt. They are going to feel the heat. The Middle Belt gets used. During the Civil War, the Middle Belt fought for the integration of Nigeria. I do not have statistics to substantiate the claims that I want to make, but a lot of the people who fought for the war, for the integration of Nigeria, were Middle Belters. We fought under the guise of preserving one Nigeria. But it seems to me like the fight was more about the preservation of the interests of a section of Nigeria. And the Middle Belt still doesn't seem to have realized that she gets used at each time in history by the predominantly Muslim Hausa Fulani North. Each time, we are the ones who get used. And it baffles me that with all the education you find in the Middle Belt, they can be dribbled by illiterate people whose only source of information is VOA Hausa section, BBC Hausa section, DW Hausa section. I mean, it baffles me.
So should the so-called Middle Belters identify with the North? Since that identity, using your words, is just like a dream, right? So should the Middle Belters stop calling themselves Middle Belters and just refer to themselves as Northerners?
The North doesn't see people from the Middle Belt as belonging to the North. Because to be North, you have to be Hausa, Fulani, and Muslim, or Hausa or Kanuri and Muslim. This is a sad reality of what it means to be a North. But if I go to Imo, if I go to Abia, if I go to Anambra, if I go to any of the eastern states, if I go to the south, they see me as Hausa simply because I speak Hausa as a medium of communication. Now, if anything happens and Northerners are killed in any of those parts, or the Hausas are being killed in any of those parts, if I am there, I can guarantee that I will hardly survive because I'm perceived as a Northerner. But I come to the North and I am discriminated on the basis of my ethnicity and on the basis of my religion. So I am not considered a Northerner. So as a Middle Belter, then who am I? It's almost like saying, nobody. As far as the larger question of Nigeria is concerned, it's almost like I am nobody. As to the agitations, should they continue? I feel like there is a need to redefine what it means to be a Middle Belter. If we keep insisting that a Middle Belter must be religiously a Christian, do we want the people in Latvia to be part of the Middle Belt? The Muslims in Latvia to be part of the Middle Belt? The ones in Doma, do we want them to be part of the Middle Belt? Do we want, if there are Muslims in Kachia, do we want them to be part of the Middle Belt? If we have Christians in Muslims, in Just Not, do we want them to be part of the Middle Belt? Should people in Wase who are Muslim be part of the Middle Belt? And that takes us back to the crisis of citizenship that I have talked about. Unless we get to the point of seeing ourselves first as Nigerians, then second as those categories that I have defined, we will keep having these problems. But it's how do we get to the point of seeing ourselves primarily as Nigerians? It's a tough thing. The colonial administrations took advantage of those differences, and through the use of divide and rule, they use it to serve their purposes. I discovered some years back, just doing my research, that even part of the indigenous set Latin was a colonial creation. And they did it in almost every other country that the colonial administrations went. They polarized the people on the basis of you are the sons of the soil, you are settlers. The sons of the soil get seen as the people who have the right to vie for political offices, to get appointments, and so on and so forth. So if you and I have lived in Katsina or Zamfara for 100 years, we are still settlers. It absolutely makes no sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I understand that politicians want to exploit that, and they keep doing that. You and I come to the US, a country that our parents have never been to, and we have access to the services being offered. Yes, they have their processes, but Nigerians who have been here for, I mean, not even generations, are vying for positions and are getting elected into positions, and nobody is saying you are not a son of the soil. And these people in leadership in Nigeria, they were here. They came here and saw how the system works. And yet when they go back home, what they propagate are completely different from the things that they enjoyed here.
Mm-hmm.
They keep spreading this divide and rule thing. They keep spreading this citizen and settler thing to their own advantage, which again is sad. It is sad because I am hoping now this is where it gets complex. So if you are from some villages in Kano, in Katsina, in Sokoto, in Jigawa, in Zamfara, and the rest, and you happen to be, you are indigenous to the place, but because you are a Christian, you cannot vie for elective office. You cannot even be a ward head. You cannot even be a district head because you are a Christian. You are indigenous to the place, but you are discriminated upon on the basis of your faith. This problem will not go overnight. Somebody has to say, again, I hear we're talking about revising the constitution we have. I don't know that we've ever had a constitution. I don't know anything about constitutional law. So that's the expertise of other people. But how I wish that we write for the first time a Nigerian constitution. And just beyond writing, that we follow up to the point of implementation. Now, one thing we didn't talk about, which I wanted to mention, was like the Federal Character Commission is something that I have a problem with. Yes, the root of the Federal Character Commission was to address the imbalances in the distribution of resources, in the distribution of powers and privileges, and so on and so forth. But do you know what it has also done? It has increased the endorsement of mediocrity.
That's true.
That I can just be given appointments simply because people feel, oh, he's from a marginalized place. Even when I don't have the expertise, I don't have the skills, I don't have the competencies necessary for those positions. I guess I just said too much to one question.
No, that's everything. It's quite right. So I wouldn't allow you to go without, talking about religion, and specifically Christianity and the state of the church in Nigeria. You are someone that may be described as both a scholar and also a practitioner, and in the Christian cycle. You about rounding up your PhD in this, and you have studied this extensively. You have written about it, and you have also held several positions of leadership in the church in Nigeria, and you respected. You are respected. People that know you respect you for speaking about some of the issues, not just political issues, but specifically the state of the church in Africa in general, and particularly in Nigeria. And I want to, 8 years ago, about 8 years ago or so, you wrote a book um, which you titled Men of Gold, which is like a play of words, not men of God, God, but men of gold, silver and gold, with a subtitle, Rescuing the Church from the Thralls of Material Men of God. It was published in 2013. And I find one quote in this small but very fascinating book. Let me just, I will make the cut, I'll read the cut, and I want to hear your response about that. And that will kind of launch us into talking about the state of the church in Nigeria. I quote, you say, the 70s marked another era in Nigerian Christianity, the Holy Ghost era. During this time, our campuses were literally taken over by brothers and sisters, either led or slain by the Holy Ghost. It was undeniable that many genuine Christian conversions and transformations were experienced during this era. It seemed to be Nigeria's turn to reap the harvest of the 1906 Azusa Street revival of William Seymour. Sadly, though, soon afterwards, ministerial rascality was mistaken for radicality. When ministerial rascality got confounded with radicality, not only was the seed of materialist gospel sown, the fire of an avaricious mindset was lit with grave consequences for the coming years. What began with an honest attempt to appropriate biblical promises soon turned into misappropriation of same. Sadly, still, the story has not changed ever since then. I know there are quite a lot of grammar. Maybe somebody needs a Webster's dictionary to unpack some of those. But I wanted to comment on that and kind of situate it. This was 8 years ago, and it's even more relevant today. By the way, I don't know whether this book is on Amazon. It's a discussion. It's something I've always had in mind. I think it's something that a lot of people need to have access to. Maybe you need to just publish this on Amazon or something somewhere. I don't know whether you have the rights to the publishing of the book or not. But I think it's a book that still speaks. It's 8 years ago. It's like just today. It speaks a lot to the hearts of the problems of the church in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. So I want you to situate this quote. You wrote it. Uh, so you understand what I mean. Situate it within the context of the church in Nigeria.
Thank you. At a certain point, I wanted to have the book republished, and the editor said something to me about my language being too flowery. I think that wasn't meant to be a compliment. So I am thinking of how to simplify and make the language more accessible to just the average reader out there whose interest is actually just to read and to enlighten himself, and also to be of use in God's kingdom. Now, let me say that it took me like 5 years of reflection before I could finally come to terms with letting this baby out. I debated about so many issues about the book, but by the end of the day, it was actually my reflection of my initial drive in going into ministry and what I saw that was happening in me. You and I remember those times when we were just more than satisfied to be invited anywhere to go and preach, and you felt like, wow, how did they even know me? And we accepted every invitation with great humility, just knowing that it was an opportunity to make Christ known. But then over time, it almost like started becoming a right. And what invitation some of us accepted started becoming the size of the church, the size of what we perceive as a honorarium. And so just reflecting on this, how materialism crept into my personal life as a minister of the gospel, I then explored and discovered that I may not be the only one. There may be so many people that materialism just sneaked in on them without them knowing. And it was partly my attempt to call our attention to it and say, hey, can we go back? Can we go back to our first love for the Lord and for his church? Can we go back to when the minister of the gospel, the word minister, servant, was truly a servant and not the Lord of the people? Can we go back to when the pastor was a shepherd and not a beast not a beast to the sheep that we've been called to care for? I worry because I see a lot of exploitation of the members by those of us who have been called into ministry. I worry that we exploit them and we use all kinds of religious language and we keep them like in perpetual servitude to us. That they feel like if they are not doing this to us, then they are disobeying God. They feel like if they are not buying new suits for their pastor, if they are not paying for the pastor's children's school fees, if they are not paying for, the privileges of the ministry all of a sudden have become like the priorities of the pastors. I feel like we've gotten to the point where privileges have soon become rights. And what in Nigeria people call the broth of the gospel, Roman Bishara, which is an insult. Which is an insult for what the gospel stands for. How can the broth of the gospel be an envelope that I get or a check that I get after I preached? The broth of the gospel is seen as coming to know Christ. Now, I am going to be saying radical things a few weeks from now. I worry that church members who are not taking care of their parents, their aged parents, and their younger ones are busy spending so much money to cater for the needs and the greeds of their pastors. And all the pastor promises them is the Lord will bless you, the Lord will bless you. Now, let me be radical about this. I think for me, the greatest blessing that I have ever received have not come from any pastor. They've come from my parents blessing me and telling me, son, God bless you. Because I have not forgotten the biblical demand or command for us to take care of our parents. This exploitation of the gospel, this exploitation of members has to stop. So Man of Gold was my attempt to enlighten both clergy and lay leaders of the church and also members of the church to awaken. We take everything our pastor said like it is God who said it. And we forget that the pastors are fallible human beings. The Man of Gold was actually an invitation for us to embrace the Berean attitude of going back to the Bible to search and see whether what our pastor said is true or false. I didn't want a situation where people would be carried away by the nice sounding arguments or presentations of their pastors, but to go back and be sure that what their pastors say is, like Paul would say, a demonstration of the Spirit and power. So it's a product of my personal reflection. And I wish to say that it's also a product of my repentance before God. It's an invitation to pastors out there. A lot of us have gotten it wrong. The mess you see in the church today is all about exploiting members. And it doesn't matter what church denomination you belong to. It doesn't matter. I have had pastors in my own church denomination telling their members that it is their duty to pay their children's school fees. And I said, then who pays the school fees of the members' children? We all get paid. Some people will find this crazy, but they know that I have always stood by this. We all get paid, the pastor and the members all work and get paid. The members plan, the pastor should plan. If I can't afford the school my children are going to, let me get the one that I can afford. Rather than feasting on the members and making them guilty, making them feel like they've sinned against God by not paying my children's school fees. It is not their responsibility. It is my responsibility because I'm the father of those children. So it's I've been reflecting on this. I've been reflecting. At some point, some people wanted the book, but I felt like I needed to do some further work on it before I can give it back again. It's been like 8 years, like you said, and some of the things that people glossed over, they won't forgive me today. If it comes out the same, I have some feedback that I need to work on.
And yeah, you have said, of course, that book is a book I would recommend to anyone that is into ministry or a Christian that wants to really understand the pastorate as a whole. It's small, but small but mighty, as they say. Um, what do you think about? I know you have answered that to some extent in your last response. Just talk to me a little bit about the state of the church, not just the ministers, as it were, but just the state of the church in Nigeria.
There is no one word to describe the state of the church in Nigeria. We celebrate numbers, and numbers are supposed to mean that the church in Nigeria is growing. But if we think about growth more in terms of width than depth, it is problematic. I am worried at the level of gullibility that I see in most members of the church in Nigeria. I am worried that people will run into whatever is trending in the name of church or ministry. Somehow I feel that this gullibility gets explained within the context of failed infrastructure in Nigeria. Because the health system isn't functional and isn't reliable. Because most apparatuses of government are dysfunctional. The religious cycle seems to be perceived as the one having the answers. So people will go to the church or they will go to the mosque, but I'll stick with the church because that's what I know best. People will go to that. I have seen so many crazy stuff done in the name of Christ that I can guarantee Christ is not in that. I have seen supposed men of God kick women in their stomach. And we take this abuse. I have seen so-called men of God step on members, make members to lie down, and they step on them and walk on them and preach while walking on their members. That is savage. And all in the name of doing Christianity. I have seen people drink from the bowl that the pastor washed his dirty hands, all in the name of following Jesus. Now, this is what cult leaders do, and this is what followers of cult leaders do. The church is not a cult. It is the body of Christ. And if we are the body of Christ, then what we need to do is bring everything under scrutiny of the gospel. So I feel also that there is a need to redefine within biblical parameters, what does it mean to be the church? We celebrate having the largest congregation maybe in the world or in Africa or whatever. We've built this magnificent thing. Look, How I wish that we can redefine the church beyond just the walls, beyond the structures that we have built. How I wish that we can redefine the church in terms of how useful is the church to the context where the church is situated. Nigerian pastors, for instance, are among the richest in the world. How I wish that we can define the success of our churches and our ministries beyond our pastor and our CEO or GO or whatever president or whatever we call them, riding the latest car and flying the latest jets. How I wish that we can define it in terms of our service to our communities. How I wish we can define the church in terms of the changes, the uplift that it is given to people. Now, when Christianity came, one of the things that it did is that it gave people redemption and lift. For most people who became Christians within the early days of Christianity in Nigeria, there was a lift that also happened socially. Economically, there was. Is the church being this to the communities where the church is? How can you have like the best looking church structure in a very poor neighborhood and you're doing nothing about it? What does it say about the church? So it's I am filled with joy. One, because of the perseverance of the church in Nigeria in the midst of stiff opposition. I am filled with joy and hope as I see how the church hopes in the face of all of the challenges and all the odds against the church. The church keeps persevering, keeps hoping, keeps believing, keeps trusting, and keeps evangelizing and keeps growing. But I am also worried about the nature of the church that I see.
Cynthia Bwanghot wants you to, she's asking a question. You talked about ministers of the gospel, and she wants to know, what about faithful ministers of the gospel that are underpaid or not paid at all? She wants you to comment on that.
Hey, Cynthia, good to see you. Okay, or to hear you or whatever. But that is an interesting question. I had the privilege of being at some form of leadership, and a lot of people didn't like my opinions about the raise for people in church leadership. And I stand by those views even today. I have no regrets ever saying those views. I have no regrets holding on to those views. That we have made leadership lucrative at the expense of every one of us. And when ministry and leadership becomes this lucrative, what it does is that it gives rise to false leaders and false ministers. I know of pastors who will hardly get salaries for months. I know of pastors who, for 9 months, they won't have salaries, and the church can only pay them 3 months. And the pastor will forgive those 9 months that the churches were unable to pay and start another year for 9 months without salaries, and only for them to forgive another 3 months if the church is able, or they forgive 10 or even 11 months because the church can only pay them for 1 month. It is for these pastors that I insisted, let's cut down on the cost of running leadership in the church. Simple. Don't give too much money to people in leadership. I don't care at what level. Let the money go back to maintaining those faithful ministers that Cynthia is talking about, who are daily, out there slugging out in the midst of opposition, in the midst of lack and want, in the midst of all forms of deprivation. These people are out there doing ministry. Those are the people I am hoping we could prioritize as we do ministry. By the end of each month, it will be a thing of joy to hear that every other minister of the gospel gets some form of payment. Now, I know that no salary is adequate enough for what we do in terms of ministry, in terms of what we all go through doing ministry in Nigeria. But at least whatever is agreed upon as salary should come to every pastor. But that will take a change of attitude, a change of mind. Now, I have said that when the church critiques government, secular government, for spending so much of our national budget on caring for the needs of elected officers, do we fall victims of the very criticisms we have made? Do we become victims of our own accusations in the sense that we're also guilty of the things we're accusing government of doing?
Those are some powerful statements there for reflection for anyone that wants to listen. I want to just take this time. There are just too many things that I will talk with you. This is just the beginning of a conversation. I know that we will always have this conversation again, but I just want to take this time to really thank you for making time to be part of the interview today and to also be audacious to say your mind as you always would to you. These are some of us that know you closely. We know that these are things that you have been saying for many years, and you have never changed your opinions about that, and we really appreciate you for that. And also some of you that were privileged to serve under you know your exemplary leadership, and you are not someone that only speaks. You act. You match your words with your actions, and want to pray that the Lord will continue to keep you and will continue to have these fruitful conversations about our dear nation and also the state of the church in Nigeria.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for your friendship over the years. I see that we have a lot going on, and God is going to help us. As you said in one of our behind-the-scenes chats, that we will all die empty. It's a lofty prayer, but it's a prayer that I hope God grants us the grace to be able to live by. Amen. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much. Cynthia says that she is literally clapping.
Thank you.
For those of you that contributed and participated in today's program, I want to take this time to thank you. Until I come your way next time with another interesting episode of the interview. Bye for now.
Thank you.